South Africa v Australia is the first game in this year's truncated Rugby Championship. It's shorter, only 3 rounds this year because of the Rugby World Cup later on in September. So this one is today, Saturday, the 8th of July. Kickoff is 4:05 BST. It's at Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria. That is the home of the Bulls who play in the URC. We're going to have a quick look at the two teams. So starting with the home team, South Africa. So we've got fullback is Willie le Roux. Right wing is Keenan Moody. Centres Lukhanyo and Andre Esterhuizen. Left wing is Kurtley Arendse. Halfbacks then Manny Lebok and Corbus Reinhardt. Front row Stephen Kitsoff, Bongi Mbanambi, Franz Malherbe. Second row is Jean Klein and Marvin Orie. Back row is Marco van Staden, Peter Steph-Toy and Dwayne Vermeulen. Bench then you got Joseph Dwebe, Thomas Toy, Vincent Koch, Orgy Snyman, Evan Roos, Dion Foree, Grant Williams, and Damien Willemse. So just to, a few things on the team. Willie le Roux and Damien Willemse, it's kind of interesting to see who's going to come out on top, I think, for the 15 jersey ahead of the Rugby World Cup. And I think this championship will go a long way to deciding which of those are going to get that. Looks like le Roux is getting the nod to begin with, at least. Keenan Moody had a good impact last year in the championship when he made his debut and seems to, be at least putting his hand up for a wing spot, but there is a lot of competition, for those wing spots as well, especially from players who are based outside of South Africa. But maybe he can take his chance and nail one of those down. Centres then Lukhanyo, probably certainly one of the most talented centres and form centres in the world as well, possibly the form centre in the world. There are others that come into that conversation though. Then Kurtley Arendse, another one who has a chance to stake a claim for certainly World Cup inclusion, maybe not a starting spot in the World Cup because as others come back into the team and the squad, might find himself kind of as a squad player rather than starter. But if you play well in the Rugby Championship, that can all change very quickly. Manny Lebok first start at 10 for the Springboks. We'll talk a little bit more about that later when we go through team news. Then that front row, Kitsoff, Mbanambi and Malherbe, was pretty decent and will certainly give a good examination to the Wallabies. Sean Klein is big talking point here in Ireland. Again, we'll go over that a bit later. Marvin Orie had a decent season for the Stormers, and it's kind of good to see him being rewarded. Not sure, how many starts he's going to get in a Springbok jersey this year, but maybe again someone who can take their chance. Then the back row, Marco van Staden, Peter Steph-Toy and Dwayne Vermeulen. So Orie again, another one rewarded, I think, for a decent year with the Stormers. Van Staden, a decent year for the Bulls. I already talked about Orie. Peter Steph-Toy is playing in Japan at the moment, and he's still a great player, not necessarily up to the standard that we've seen him before, and he's probably going to be a little bit under pressure for his spot. But if he can produce what we know he can produce in Springbok jersey, I think he could nail that 7 jersey down. Dwayne Vermeulen, not a great season for him with Ulster. Ulster really haven't seen, the best of him, I think, since he's moved there, but still, put a Springbok jersey on him and he's just a different beast and expect him to deliver. Few on the bench then, Joseph Dwebe. The guy, he had a really good year with the Stormers, but he is prone to some silly errors and giving away silly penalties as well. That could cost him in terms of that fight for, I think, backup hooker. I don't think he's going to force his way into the starting team for the World Cup. Certainly not in kind of the tough games or the more important games. Or Snyman, we'll talk a little bit about him later as well. But it's good to see him back in the Springboks after injury worries. Dion Fourie has had a great season as well for the Stormers, and another one kind of rewarded for that, I feel, with a start here. Grant Williams, if you haven't seen that guy before, he's just got pace to burn, and he's a very quick thinker as well. So don't be surprised if he catches the Wallabies out by a quick tap penalty and maybe having the gas then to finish it off and score a try. Onto the Australian team then. So haven't watched that much or really any at all Super Rugby this year, so can't have as much comment on the Wallabies team. But we got fullback as Tom Wright, fairly solid player. I think maybe you'll see calls coming towards the World Cup for someone with a bit more X factor maybe at fullback, but we'll see how that goes. Right wing then is Suolisi Vunivalu, who I think he's a league convert, but he's been in Union for a couple of seasons. Then we got centres are Len Ikitau and Reece Hodge, like a decent centre partnership. I think combinations is going to be something that under Eddie Jones they're going to have to work out before the World Cup. Then you got Marika Koribete, who for my money is the best back that the Wallabies have at the moment. Guy is super consistent, always a good performance out of him, even when the team is not doing so well around him, and his versatility, that he can play both centre positions as well, probably means that he's going to move around to accommodate others. But for me, I'd rather probably see him in the centres if at all possible. Halfbacks then you got Quade Cooper and Nick White. So Nick White, a lot of chat out of him. Definitely going to try and get under the Springbok skin, and probably annoy the referee as well. Quade Cooper, kind of interesting. It feels like a long time since the Wallabies have had like a settled 9-10 combination. Cooper's been in and out of the team for many, many years. Front row then is James Slipper, David Porecki, and Alan Alatoa. Decent enough front row. I think though against this Wallabies Springbok scrum that they might struggle just a little bit, but there aren't many front rows in the world that would struggle against the Springboks front row either, or the Springboks pack for that matter. But don't take that as, if they do struggle, don't take that as the Wallabies have a terrible scrum, because I think that's kind of a, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, we kind of think of the Wallabies, we think, oh, their scrum is terrible, but they've worked a lot on it over many years, and it's generally it goes pretty well. I would kind of compare it to the Irish scrum, where it's serviceable, it's not a weapon, and sometimes it can struggle against teams who are focused on that area of the game. But generally, it's a serviceable scrum. Don't expect, if you've got like a half decent scrum that you're going to dominate them. You've really got to have kind of the level that the Springboks have to possibly dominate. I'm not going to say that they are, but just kind of think of it in that way, I think. Then we got Nick Frost and Will Skelton there. Like, Skelton's had another fantastic season for La Rochelle. Got Tom Hooper, who's making his debut. Michael Hooper, probably the best and certainly most consistent forward that the Wallabies have. Guy's a real threat at the breakdown, but also a good link player as well in attack, and just such great work right too. Got Rob Valentini there at 8. He's looking to kind of nail in that spot, I think, for the World Cup. Then the replacements, got Jordan Ulese, Matt Gibbon, Zane Nonger, Richie Arnold, Pete Samu, Tate McDermott, Samu Korevi, and Carter Gordon. Carter Gordon, know a little bit about him. I know that he is a fairly decent 10, and hopefully he gets some minutes in this game, and it doesn't just get kind of token 2 or 3 minutes at the end just to get him on the field. So let's talk a little bit more about first of all, the team news, and then we'll talk about the last time these two teams. Actually, let's talk about the last time these two teams met, and then we'll talk about the team news. So last year, they played twice in the Rugby Championship. Both of them were in Australia. First game was Australia 25, South Africa 17. Rika Corambetti had a fantastic game for the Wallabies. I think he won player of the match, but all around was pretty good. Australia, it looks close in the scoreline, but it was kind of comfortable for most of the game for them. There was a late Quagga Smith double that both tries converted for South Africa that made the scoreline look a bit closer than it really was. Australia very much on top in that game. But then the second game, Australia 8, South Africa 24, completely flipped around where South Africa were on top, very physical, very dominant. And Kanan Moody on debut, he scored a try there as well. So we'll be looking to repeat that in this game as well. Last time these two teams played in South Africa was 2019, obviously due to COVID restrictions. And it was South Africa 35, Australia 17. There were, number of try scores from both teams. The only one left in the 23s for either team was actually Corvus Reinark. So a lot of players either unavailable or moved on since then. South Africa very dominant, very physical in that game as well. They're going to probably look for a similar scoreline this time around. The team talking points then. So for the Wallabies, we got 4 debutants. Tom Hooper starting at 6. We also got Zane Nonger, Richie Arnold, and Carter Gordon all coming off the bench. Got Vunivalu, Lee Convert getting his first start for the Wallabies. Probably hasn't delivered as much as they expected. With Lee Converts in Australia, they pay a lot of money to bring them over. And for this to be his first start, even though he's there, I think this is third season, kind of speaks to, how long it's taken him to adapt to the union code, but maybe now he's going to impress in this one and go from strength to strength from there. Quade Cooper starting at 10. As said previously, seems a long time since Australia have had a settled halfback pairing there. Cooper, we know what he can give you. He gives you, unpredictability for your team and the opposition. He, threatens the line. He's got wonderful passing game, and he's got that goose step as well that, whether it's coming or not, he can still feel you with it. But it's kind of interesting that he keeps going in and out of the Wallabies under, so many different coaches being in favour and not being in favour. I wonder if Eddie's going to have more patience with him and with his style of game to give him an actual run in the team where he can kind of establish and they can build a team around him, or whether it's just a case of he's going to give, a few different 10s a shot starting out. Maybe like Carter Gordon gets a start against Argentina. We'll have to see what happens with that. But then Bernard Foley, who was the starting 10 last year, he's actually in the A squad. At the moment, he plays in Japan. He's in the A squad, I think, for a game against Tonga. So we'll have to see how he does there. I think he maybe has to impress in that one to bring himself back into the conversation for the Rugby World Cup. I think European fans, and especially Leinster fans, will be most familiar with, how good Will Skelton is. But I think the question with that is, can he bring that kind of form consistently into green and gold? Because we haven't really seen that with him, with the Wallabies. Maybe Eddie can can spark that in him where he's going to produce that kind of form for them. In terms of the Springboks, then we had a late change to the team. Oxenchae was injured, so Stephen Kitroff came in to start there, but what a player to be able to replace him. Lebok first start for the Springboks. Now, some of you who maybe didn't watch so much URC over the season and only watched the finals, probably thinking like, why is this guy getting a start? Because he didn't have the best game in the final, but his season overall was pretty exceptional. Great kicking game, runs the line really well, and has a good eye for a gap too, and can attack himself. As said, over the season, I think what he's done over then has been enough to get him this start. So we have to see how he actually goes with the Springbok with that extra pressure on him. If the pressure of the final was what kind of affected him then, what's this going to do to him? Then John Klein on debut, big debate in Ireland about that, about some people saying, why was he picked for the Ireland training squad? He's better than some of the players that were picked. But so people are feeling like that. He didn't get picked for Ireland, and then he got called up for the Springboks. But I've got a feeling that it was maybe a little bit different, that maybe somebody reached out to him about potentially switching allegiance back to the Springboks, and because of that he wasn't picked for the Ireland training squad. I've not evidence to back that up, but it's kind of feels a bit more realistic for me, if that makes any sense. But yeah, for me, I think whichever way it is, if Ireland felt that he was gonna help us and we had the ability to pick him, and we didn't, then it just says, well, best luck to him. I think switching to the Springboks is the right thing to do. And if it was the case where somebody reached out to him and Ireland therefore declined to pick him because they knew what was going to happen, again, fair play to him for kind of following what he says is his dream. So I've no kind of malice towards him. I think if he does well for Springboks, then why not? Good luck to him. Another Munster player then, Orji Snyman, he's on the bench. Hasn't played that many minutes this season for Munster, but certainly more than he had in previous seasons. Came back from 17-month injury, kind of slowly working his way back into the team, but getting better game on game. And I think if he gets a run with the Springboks as well, the guy's just going to prove how much of a beast he is. In terms of views from the camp then, so for South Africa, Lebok sees this as a big opportunity for him. He knows that the Wallabies are going to target him and try and put him under a lot of pressure, but he feels that the experience that is around him in that Springboks team is going to help him with that. Then Sean Klein, he was talking as well, said he was shocked when he got the call up. It was a great honour to play for Ireland, but growing up he dreamed about emulating Bakkies Botha and pulling on that Springboks jersey. So again, I support him in following that dream, and I just wish him well. Hope everything goes well for him. I don't have the ill intentions that maybe some Irish fans do, either towards him or towards the Irish coaches for not picking him. Jack Nienaber, then head coach, said never ideal to lose a player of Oxenchae's quality, but lucky to have a player like Kitsoff to be able to step in there. Also said that they've got a lot of emphasis on how important it is to be adaptable to situations like this, and that they're lucky to have such depth at their disposal. For Australia then, Eddie Jones said players have worked very hard in the run-up to the Rugby Championship, in the entire squad, not just his 23. Players now have a chance to make history by winning in Pretoria. He talked about memories that he has himself of Pretoria, including the Bulls putting 90-odd points on his Reds team in Super Rugby, a number of years ago, and then also talking about when he was part of the coaching setup for the 2007 World Cup, that somebody in the dressing room when he was asked to talk was playing the Bulls song as well. So a bit of back and forth on that. But, it's Eddie Jones. He's always got a word for everything and for everybody as well. But it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how he affects the Wallabies. Kind of know from past positions that he's had that he's probably going to have that kind of honeymoon period of kind of a year to 18 months where he will bring in new ideas, he'll energize everyone, and they'll get a bounce from that. So I think they've got him at the perfect time now, especially for the World Cup. He's going to give them that bounce for the World Cup. And beyond that period, then generally he has, falls out with people and things start to go downhill from there. But I think in terms of the Wallabies bringing him in for the World Cup, I think it was a great idea because he is going to have that initial really positive impact on the squad. In terms of my predictions, it's the first game for Eddie Jones there, so maybe hasn't betted in everything that he wants, but I think he will have a trick or two up his sleeve for this game. But I think Springboks at home, they're going to have too much for them, and it looks to me at least as if it's going to be a South Africa win, possibly coming from behind after Wallabies do get that bounce early on and maybe catch them a little bit cold. But then I think the quality and the physicality of the South African side is going to come over the top and give them the win.